I am so incredibly thrilled you're joining me for this explainer today because we are going to explore one of the most mind-bending, literally reality-shattering intersections in all of modern science. We are looking right at the exact point where quantum mechanics collides with biology. Now, for the longest time, these two fields were treated as completely, entirely separate domains. Physics, that dealt with the ultra-small, the ultra-cold, the perfectly controlled. And biology, well, biology dealt with the messy, warm, squishy, chaotic reality of living things. But recently, researchers have discovered that these two worlds aren't just bumping into each other, they are fundamentally, inextricably intertwined. We're going to unpack exactly how life itself actively uses quantum effects to operate.
Okay, let's dive into this. When you hear the phrase quantum computer, you probably picture, a massive, multi-million-dollar metallic chandelier hanging in this pristine, hyper-controlled laboratory, right? You think of Google or IBM, but what if that picture is just totally wrong? What if the most sophisticated quantum machinery in the known universe isn't made of gold plates and super-cooled wires at all, but rather protein, water, and carbon? What if the ultimate quantum device is actually beating inside your chest, literally right now? It's a paradox that has completely upended our understanding of reality. And to understand exactly why it's so shocking, we first need to look at the old rules we thought we knew. Which brings us to Section 1, the warm and wet paradox.
So for decades, there was this incredibly strict, unquestioned assumption in classical physics. It was a rule so firmly established that if you even brought up the idea of quantum biology, you'd basically be laughed right out of the lecture hall. Scientists firmly believed that delicate quantum states could only exist under incredibly specific, intensely isolated conditions. Just look at the sheer scale of the contrast here. Over on the left, you've got a human-made quantum lab. To maintain a quantum state, like getting a particle to exist in multiple places at once, we humans have to perfectly isolate it, cooling the entire environment down to near absolute zero. It is unfathomably fragile and takes immense amounts of energy to maintain. Now look over on the right, a living biological cell. It's sitting at roughly 37 degrees Celsius, it's warm, it's wet, it's constantly jiggling around, and it is just a totally chaotic environment. Attempting to hold a fragile quantum state inside a living cell is honestly like trying to build a delicate house of cards in the middle of a Category 5 hurricane. The crucial takeaway here is this. According to literally all standard models of physics, if a quantum state like coherence, which is where a system exists simultaneously across multiple pathways, if that were to somehow appear inside a warm biological cell, it should logically collapse in a femtosecond. Just for some context, a femtosecond is 1/4,000,000th of a second. It is a flash of time so unimaginably brief that it's far, far too short to have any sort of biological significance whatsoever. The quantum magic should just vanish before the cell even registers it's there. But, as we are about to see, nature is incredibly good at breaking our rules. Let's move right into Section 2, Nature's Quantum Machinery. Over the last 20 years or so, researchers armed with crazy new technologies started looking much closer at biological processes, and what they found completely shattered all those classical textbook assumptions we just talked about. The impossible wasn't just happening, it was absolutely thriving. And the pace of these discoveries, it's been staggering. In 2007, boom, we find quantum coherence in photosynthesis. By 2011, scientists figured out that migratory birds are using quantum entanglement to navigate. In 2015, a brand new thermodynamic theory completely redefined the origins of life itself. And by 2020, we had hard, clear evidence of quantum tunneling in the very enzymes that keep us alive. It's just been this rapid, chronological succession of breakthroughs that forces us to realize, wow, biology is quietly running on quantum software. Let's actually break down that first major discovery. Back in 2007, Professor Graham Fleming's research team over at UC Berkeley was studying photosynthetic proteins in marine algae and plants. And the funny thing is, they weren't even looking for quantum physics. They just wanted to see exactly how fast energy moves through a molecule when a leaf absorbs a photon of sunlight. Well, they found that these proteins transfer solar energy with an efficiency of 95 to 99%. That is basically absolute perfection. And how on earth do they do it? By maintaining quantum coherence. They are exploring multiple energetic pathways at exactly the same time and holding that state for picoseconds. That is thousands of times longer than classical physics said was even remotely possible in a warm, wet leaf. But hey, it definitely doesn't stop with plants. By 2011, an independent research team out of the University of Oxford started looking at migratory birds, specifically the European robin. Now, every single year, these little birds navigate across the globe by sensing Earth's magnetic field. But here's the catch. Earth's magnetic field is incredibly weak. We're talking only about 50 microteslas. That is so ridiculously weak, it shouldn't mathematically be able to trigger a chemical reaction in a bird's brain. Yet researchers confirmed that cryptochrome proteins inside the robin's retinas literally use quantum entanglement between radical electron pairs to physically see this incredibly faint magnetic field. It's a built-in quantum compass. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer diversity of this phenomenon. Just look at how these entirely distinct biological entities have harnessed completely different quantum effects. You've got algae and plants using quantum coherence to optimize solar conversion. Then the European robin uses quantum entanglement for magnetoreception, letting it navigate the globe. And biological enzymes use something called quantum tunneling to massively accelerate chemical reactions. The evidence is literally everywhere. But of course, the massive looming question remains. How are they doing this without the multi-million-dollar supercooled labs?
To answer that, scientists proposed what are known as vibrational assistance models. This is currently the prevailing scientific theory attempting to explain how a soft, squishy biological structure sitting at body temperature can maintain such a highly delicate quantum state. The core idea here is that the complex, super messy protein scaffolding inside a cell doesn't just randomly shake around. Actually, scratch that. It does shake, but it acts as a highly specialized shield that fundamentally protects and channels the coherence environment. Think of it like this, going back to our earlier analogy. If you build a house of cards in a hurricane, the wind destroys it immediately, right? But what if the house of cards was built inside a highly specialized scaffolding that actually harnessed the chaotic energy of the wind? It uses the turbulence to perfectly push the next card right into place. That is exactly what life is doing. The surrounding chaotic environment actually assists the energy flow rather than destroying it. These soft, wet biological structures are actively outperforming our most advanced human-made supercooled laboratories simply by using the molecular noise as an advantage. It's genius. Which brings us right to Section 3, Quantum Inside You. Now, I know it's really easy to look at leaves and birds and think of this as something happening, out there in nature. But this impossible physics isn't just for plants and animals. Right now, literally as you said, they're watching this, inside your human cells, microscopic particles are actively slipping through solid energy barriers that are strictly forbidden by classical mechanics. It's a phenomenon called quantum tunneling. And this isn't some rare once-in-a-lifetime occurrence. This tunneling effect is accelerating your biochemical enzyme reactions by millions of times. I'm not exaggerating. Without this bizarre quantum shortcut allowing particles to essentially teleport through barriers, the basic biochemical reactions keeping you alive right now simply wouldn't happen fast enough to sustain your life. Oh, and it gets even stranger. Deep inside your cells, endless chemical reactions are also operating under the rules of something called the quantum anti-Zeno effect. In physics, the anti-Zeno effect basically proves that continuous, dense interaction and observation of a subatomic system doesn't freeze it in place. It actually triggers it to transition and transform significantly faster, kind of like a quantum version of a watched pot boils faster. The metabolic and energy conversion processes occurring continuously inside your body every single second are fundamentally governed by these microscopic interaction mechanisms. Your very heartbeat, your metabolism, they are entirely locked into these quantum observation rules. So let's wrap this up with Section 4, the thermodynamic inevitability. So if life at its absolute core is this deeply entangled with the quantum fabric of reality, it really forces us to zoom way out and ask a much grander question about the origins of life itself. For a very long time, the standard framework of biology, and this dates all the way back to the legendary physicist Erwin Schrödinger, it viewed life as a total anomaly. It was seen as this impossible island of local order in a universe that is constantly, relentlessly sliding toward disorder or entropy. Life was considered this lucky, bizarre exception to the rules of thermodynamics. But MIT physicist Jeremy England came along and completely flipped that script. His equations proved that life isn't an exception at all. It is actually a thermodynamic expectation. Under the right conditions, life is simply an optimal strategy for generating entropy. Jeremy England published this massive, groundbreaking framework back in 2015. And honestly, the steps are remarkably simple. Step 1. You take a group of atoms and apply a sustained external energy source to them, something like sunlight. Step 2, you surround that atomic system with a heat bath, like a vast ocean or a primordial soup. Step 3, according to his mathematics, those atoms will automatically reorganize themselves to dissipate that energy more efficiently. And what do you think is the absolute best way for an atomic structure to dissipate energy?
By self-replicating. The very core property of life, self-replication, spontaneously emerges simply as a mechanism to process energy better. And that leads to an absolute existential gut punch of a realization. It is so perfectly captured in this single idea. You are what a rock irradiated by starlight will eventually become after billions of years. If these thermodynamic assessments are accurate, human life is absolutely not a lucky cosmic accident clinging to a random wet rock. All of your curiosity, your fears, your emotions, and your very sense of experiencing reality, they are entirely mathematically, thermodynamically inevitable. We are, at our core, basically just the universe's ultimate mechanism for dispersing starlight. Which leaves us with this final, lingering thought to walk away with today. If life is a thermodynamic inevitability, and biology is essentially built entirely on a foundation of highly optimized quantum mechanics, then we have to ask, was the universe from its very dawn mathematically destined to produce a conscious entity capable of turning back to look at itself? It completely changes how we view ourselves and the cosmos around us. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep questioning everything, and I will see you in the next explainer.